Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
Simon, a Wednesday edition of the show. Are you serious?
Seriously? Well, hey, that just meant I could actually come back for 2 weeks in a row.
I know. We were concerned whether or not it would be a one Up Front segment this week, or if we had to call in Corey Plath off the bench, even though he would have been a marvelous sub. But
always
you were
is.
able to fulfill your duties as the Two Up Front man next side to me. So welcome back.
Well, I'm excited to be here, Baxter. I hope you are as well.
I am. I'm excited to talk about soccer. We've got a lot of different things to talk about on the show today. U.S. Open Cup final taking place tonight. The UEFA Champions League is in full swing. Major League Soccer playoffs right around the corner. Who's in, who's out? And, of course, the Barclays Premier League and all the chaos that always circles around with that as well. But before we get to any of that, we want to take a moment to remind you that you can catch us on Sports Radio America from 3 to 6 Eastern on Fridays. You can also get us on demand anytime you want on Spreaker.com, iTunes, and on iHeartRadio as well. And then social media, Simon, where are we?
Facebook, we are on Two Up Front, and on Twitter, we are at Two Up Front Soccer. We also have an Instagram handle as well. It's also at Two Up Front Soccer.
Yes, indeed.
And, of course, our personal Twitter handles, it is at Baxter Colburn and at Simon Provan.
Yes, indeed.
I put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable,
I think
didn't
Colburn. Usually the R in Colburn is not as emphasized as you made it, but it worked. It's fine. I don't mind it at all. But anyway, we're glad to have you along here, guys. We are going to be talking about the wonderful world of soccer. Simon and I have our new power rankings as well for our top 5 MLS teams as we get ready to close out another exciting MLS season. Well, Simon, as we get ready to roll here with our show, I feel like we need to just take a moment and just bask in the wonderfulness that is Didier Drogba.
My goodness, man. You know, I was excited in a way about him coming to the league because of the leadership I thought he'd bring and these younger players being able to learn from him. I had no idea, Baxter, that he'd take the league by storm like he has.
Absolutely. I mean, look, he has appeared in 6 total games for the Impact. He has 7 goals and 1 assist. 26 total shots, 12 on target. The man continues to dominate week in and week out. There's absolutely no reason that he shouldn't, continue to be one of the best players in the league. It's a very long shot that he'll win MVP, but if he is the complete force that brings Montreal into the playoffs, does he deserve at least a partial consideration?
I think a partial consideration, but you do have to have a full season of work to really be considered MVP. You could say if there were specifically a DP MVP, perhaps he'd win. I mean, you still got Giovinco up in Toronto, which, looking at some stuff, it looks like MLS is basically just giving Giovinco that trophy already.
I hope not.
But, what impressed me the most about Drogba is that Chicago Fire game. The Fire was up 3-1. Drogba carried the Impact on his back, got a hat trick that game, every single one of those goals being a nice goal. And it seems like ever since that game, the Impact have found belief in themselves, and it all goes back to the one man, that is Drogba.
Well, he made a solid impact in the game by scoring a perfect hat
Well
trick.
done.
I've been hanging around you too long. He
That's
scored with his left, he scored with his right, and he scored with his head. In the soccer world, that's considered a perfect hat trick, as you're using all 3 possible scoring mechanisms of your body, aside from...
Is it a quad, then, if you make one with your chest as well?
I don't exactly know how it works. Or your butt, is that like another goal? But yes.
You had to take it that far
I'm just
back.
saying, I've seen some butt goals.
That's true. That's true.
Player gets turned around in the box on a corner kick or whatever and butts it in. Hey, as long as it goes in, that doesn't matter how you score. So the Montreal Impact, though, they are looking at a possible playoff berth. They sit in 6th place right now in the Eastern Conference with 42 points. They are currently 4 points ahead of the next competitor, which is Orlando City. We'll be talking about Orlando City a wee bit later on in the show, but Montreal, they've got 12 wins, 11 losses, 6 draws.
Well, and the key here as well is not only are they above Orlando City by those 5 points, but they also have 2 games in hand over Orlando.
They do. That's the great part about it.
As far as I'm concerned, Baxter, I think the Eastern Conference is pretty well wrapped up.
Yes, and we made mention of that in our show last week, that we do not see much competition coming from Orlando, New York City, the Philadelphia Union. Chicago Fire have already been eliminated from playoff contention. I do find it great, though, that Montreal has tallied 42 total goals this season. They are one of the top goal-scoring teams in the Eastern Conference, although I do find it interesting on the other side of that New York City, who have scored 46 goals, are not in playoff contention with all the goals they've scored, but because they've allowed 51 goals.
Right. Well, I think it's very impressive. Not only do they get 42 goals on the season, Montreal that is, but they're sitting in the 6th seed, and they've got a positive goal differential.
Yeah.
I mean, a +3, and you look at teams above them, you got DC United. DC United is so lucky that they started the season so hot because there's no reason they should be sitting in 4th place with how bad they've been playing. Their winless streak, ridiculous. But there you go. It does go to show that as much as people like to say those early games don't really mean anything, they do in this case.
It does. Yeah, I mean, that's a classic case for even the Vancouver Whitecaps right now, sitting in 2nd place in the Western Conference. They started off the regular season and even partial of the midseason relatively hot. They've got 15 total wins. They're sitting in 2nd place in the Western Conference with 48 points. With the way they've been playing recently, there's probably no reason that they should be a number 2 seed. But like you mentioned, they cashed in early on some of those key games, and that's why they're sitting in a good spot so far.
And if they do win their next game, they actually will be in the top seed in the Western Conference.
They will, depending on the LA Galaxy. The LA Galaxy are such a never-changing force, I feel like. But even still, though, with the Montreal Impact and Didier Drogba, it's exciting to see soccer fans actually caring about what's going on in Montreal.
Absolutely.
Because Canada, yes, they've got 3 teams. They've got Toronto, who's been a consistent disappointment. They've got the Vancouver Whitecaps, who I feel like Canadian fans don't mind Vancouver, but it's almost a hassle because Vancouver's so far out of the normal Canadian area.
Right, and I will say, even with the Cascadia Cup, that rivalry really is Portland and Seattle.
It really
and
is.
Vancouver's kind of like, yeah, you can be a part of this.
Vancouver's like the 3rd brother out of the 3 teams. That's the littlest brother. It's like, can I play too?
Right.
And
they've all been around for 40 years, in some variation. But it is interesting how there's so much vitriol in those Portland-Seattle games, yet when Vancouver's there, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's
you can come to
never
the table.
publicized as much. It's always just like, it's a Cascadia game, and it's Seattle and Vancouver. It's it's Portland and Vancouver. Okay, great, but it's Seattle and Portland. Holy cow! It's like, okay, well, sure. Vancouver's done a fair job so far this season. They're the highest out of the 3 Cascadia teams
they
now
are
as well.
Yeah.
So,
although Seattle did officially win the Cascadia Cup, if I remember correctly.
They did, yes.
So.
They did end up taking up that trophy. And I mentioned this off-air to you too, Simon, as I was trying to go through Montreal's website. It is all in French, and I do not parlez-vous français. I was very confused because Didier Drogba has 7 butts. Right. I don't know what a butt is, but apparently it's a goal because he is second.
Well, that goes back to what you were saying. Maybe we've misread these games. Maybe they actually were all butt goals.
That is very true. Because, I was looking okay, so Ignacio Piatti and Didier Drogba, Dominic Oduro, they have 7 and 8 butts respectively. The Passeurs is Piatti with 6. The Thierry's is Ignacio Piatti with 54. I was like, wait, what the heck are butts and Passeurs?
Now, I did take a little French. Let's just clarify. It's actually, I believe it's boots. And not butts.
But come on. It's more fun to say butts.
It is more fun.
Boots.
Let's be honest.
Let's be honest about this. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with Google. It just I tried to translate, and assists turned into smugglers. So I'm not exactly sure, but Piatti has smuggled 6 times this season, whatever that means.
That would be a great stat if it actually was a stat.
Yeah.
Some type of.
This is like direct. I feel like direct.
I feel like smugglers would be a stat for the ball boys.
Yeah, exactly. They smuggled 6 balls out, and then for shots taken, it's shots fired.
Well, I like that.
Yeah,
That's
shots
great.
fired. So this is like a literal translation for Google as they're
Right.
trying to figure out what exactly the Impact website is doing. They've got everything else correct, but for saves, they have stops instead of saves.
That makes sense.
The French language converted to English, I love it. But smugglers, probably the best.
Top notch.
I love it. Well done, Montreal. Well done. Well, Simon, I feel like we've come to the time in our show, as we do in our first segment, to our 50-50 segment. And we have an interesting topic as we're going to shoot back across the pond to talk about our 50-50 segment today. We'll be talking about the great man, the mastermind of the Chelsea Football Club, Jose Mourinho.
Yes.
Or Jose Mourinho, depending on where you're located. I've heard Josie, I've heard Jose, I've heard
Jose,
Mourinho. I'm like, okay, it's whatever it is.
I'm going to go with Jose.
Jose Mourinho?
Yeah, sure.
That's fine. That's fair.
It's fun to say that way.
Yeah, it's like Jose Altidore. It's like, well, that actually is, you don't hear it. It's like Josie. Like, no, it's Josie. Anyway, we're going to be debating this week of whether or not we feel that Jose Mourinho should be fired.
Oh, so we're going to say Jose?
Coach Mourinho, the Chelsea football manager. whether or not he should be fired. We get 45 seconds each, equals 90 seconds, which equals a soccer match. 45 and 45 is 90, a soccer match. Yay, woo. And, that's about it. And then we'd like to hear from you guys on Twitter as well, or Facebook. Remember, you can hit us up at 2 Up Front Soccer, at Baxter Colburn, at Simon Provan, and then 2 Up Front on Facebook as well. All right, Simon, would you like to go first? Would you like me to go first?
I'd like you to go first. I think I went first last time.
I think you did. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Yeah,
all right.
That's fairly fine.
You all set?
Sure.
All right, give us the good word. Go.
Okay. Well, I believe that Jose, whatever the heck his name is, should not be fired, regardless of being able to pronounce his name or not. Yes, Chelsea sit at 14th place in the Barclays Premier League right now with a record of 2-2-3. But the team is loaded with enough stars. The team has plenty of options going forward for attacking. Yes, it might be a slow start for Chelsea. They still have one of the best squads, one of the best managers in European football. You've seen the way that Chelsea is capable of winning big games. Yes, I know that they just lost to Porto in the UEFA Champions League second round, but that doesn't define who Chelsea is. Chelsea has a lot of depth on the attacking front. The defense is a tad shaky, but Mourinho, as we've seen in the past, playing out in the future. So don't fire him.
All right, stop. There you go. Good. I don't mean hey, stop talking. That's what the button on the phone said. Stop.
Sure.
So.
You were speaking through the phone to me. I understand.
Yes.
All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, go.
I'm basically going to take all the arguments that you used and flip them right back on you, Baxter. Of course, Jose Mourinho is he's a mastermind when it comes to club soccer. Let's say that.
Yeah.
But you look at the results: a draw against Newcastle United. They lose to Everton, which, come on, they should. They lose to Crystal Palace. They sneak out a win over West Brom. They lose to Manchester City, which, okay, fair enough. And then they draw with Swansea City. So if this was any other manager, he would be on the hot seat. I don't think just because it's Jose Mourinho that he should be given a pass. He does have a very talented team. He's been saying from the beginning, though, that he doesn't have a defense. He doesn't have a defense. Mm-hmm. To me, he's become the excuse machine. And I say, sayonara.
Time's up. Well done. Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. You hear rumors every other day about if they're going to bring in John Stones, which they realized that they weren't able to. We've heard about Braslan Ivanovic. That's his last name, not Ibrahimovic. Ivanovic possibly being replaced because of his poor form recently on the defensive side of the ball. You know, the goalkeeper, Thibaut Courtois, he's out for a few months with an injury. It doesn't look good on the back, but maybe this is because Courtois is not in goal. If you put Courtois in, maybe the results are a little different, especially against lower teams like Crystal Palace, even Everton, no offense, or even, maybe they wouldn't have allowed 2 goals against West Brom.
Right. Well, and now you got John Terry talking about possibly going to China.
Might as well. Just bring him to MLS. I have all these players that are like, I want to go to China. Just stop. Come to Major League Soccer, play a year or two. Yeah, I know you'll continue to fuel the retirement league, but still, they get more money and more publicity here.
And you wonder how much, though, are they using MLS or China or Qatar as their negotiating tools as well?
Fair enough. All right, we're going to go to a break. This is 2 Up Front. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to another edition of 2 Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon, the UEFA Champions League continuing to roll. Hello on Periscope to all of you watching. Hello from Florida. Well, hello.
That's your home state.
I'm from Florida. Naples, Florida is where I call home occasionally when I'm not living up here in Wisconsin. I don't know where you are from in Florida, but hello and thank you for watching. It's nice to have one of my fellow countrymen. Oh, Tampa.
Tampa.
Okay, right. Just about 2 hours north of me.
I've got a brother, too, who lives down in the area there.
Maybe they know each other.
All right.
You never know.
By the way, thanks for clarifying it wasn't Tampa, that it's Tampa. That's awesome.
Maybe the locals call it Tampa.
There you go, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's Tampa, Florida. It's not Tampa Bay.
So I know we're doing a little impromptu interaction here with our Florida fan. I'm curious if you're a Rowdies fan at all. since you're there in
Ooh,
Tampa.
Tampa Bay Rowdies
I'm
fan.
going to wait for a reply here.
Absolutely. Well, while we do that, while we wait for the reply here, we'll see the UEFA Champions League. Oh,
Absolutely.
Okay. Well
All right.
done.
All right.
You
Cool.
don't find a lot of Rowdy fans.
No.
At least that are willing to admit it.
And Freddie Adu finally made an appearance again.
Finally. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if he's been injured or not, but apparently he finally got some minutes down in Tampa Bay.
Interesting. Okay, I want to just sidetrack for just a moment because this is what we do.
Oh, yes.
Is Freddie Adu the Tim Tebow of the soccer world?
That's a good question. I'm not. Well, he's at least still playing, right? But I guess there isn't like a second division NFL.
No.
Although Arena Football League
Arena
is
football
kind of
or
the second
Canadian.
division.
He could play in Canada if he wanted to.
Which I don't know if he's tried for any of those. So I don't know. It's kind of an apples oranges thing.
It is
for me.
A little bit in terms of well, you always hear about Tim Tebow wanting to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Freddie Adu was so hyped, and then just kind of had his few good years and didn't pan out.
Well, and I kind of feel like there's a difference in attitude there as well. You never hear Tebow saying that he deserves to be a starter.
True.
Where you hear Freddie say that quite a bit. It was nice to see Freddie swallow his pride a bit and finally come back over and sign with the NASL. But, I mean, there were a number of years there where he's traveling around the globe trying to find a team, and he's still saying that he is national team material.
No. Not right now, Freddie.
So,
maybe better luck next time. Yeah, Freddie Adu. I liked him when I was a kid, but now I'm at such an old person now.
We know one thing's for sure.
What's that?
We won't see him playing in the UEFA Champions League.
True. Very true.
That was me setting you up to.
Thank you. Yes, I was like, that's true. Yes, Tampa Bay is not qualified, but anyway, yes, the UEFA Champions League.
So speaking of the Champions League,
the Champions
see, that's
League.
what I was
Well
giving you that softball pitch.
Thank you, and I completely missed. I was busy waving to a fan. I don't know. All right. Well, yes, the first of the 2 rounds of action going on that took place on Tuesday and then Wednesday for UEFA Champions League.
Let me interrupt you.
Please.
5th minute, Wolfsburg scored a goal.
Oh.
So they are up 1-0 on Man United.
How crazy.
For those of you listening on Sports Radio America, and it's Friday, I understand we're kind of sound like we're backtracking.
Right, yes.
But we do this live. We like to follow live, so I don't see here yet who has scored, but Wolfsburg up on, there we go, Caliguria. Is that how you say it?
I believe so. Right-footed shot from the center of the box to the high center of the goal, assisted by Max Cruz.
So the English teams continue to have a rough time here in Champions League.
Wolfsburg.
You're a Wolfsburg fan.
I don't. I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay. All right.
Whether that.
Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm like getting us sidetracked all over the place
well,
here.
Speaking of German teams, that's a good segue. Bayer Leverkusen jumped out to an early 1-0 lead against Barcelona, and everybody was losing their minds, saying, "Oh my gosh, Barcelona's going to lose. They don't have Leo Messi." And then Luis Suarez was like, "Everybody, just chill. I got this." They ended up winning the game 2-1 thanks to Suarez.
Yes, but now Messi is out for possibly 2 months because of a ligament.
MCL, I believe, is what it ended up going down.
I didn't see if it was ACL or MCL. The article I read
surgery.
just said ligament. Okay, then I think that would be the ACL. I think right? Or is it
MCL.
Probably the MCL.
MCL,
yes.
Yeah, he's not getting surgery, so Barcelona fans can breathe a sigh of relief for that. Messi will be... Now that he is out, that does raise a lot of questions in terms of the amount of depth that Barcelona has as well.
Yes.
So that might be an issue there. We'll see. One of the teams back from my home country, Italia, AS Roma, lost their game against, I don't even know, I'm just going to call him Borussia, Bate Borussia. I'm sure there's a long, extended way to say it, but I'm going to call them Bate Borussia.
Okay.
They lost 3-2. That's all that matters at the end of the day. They lost. Bayern Munich destroyed Dynamo Zagreb by a score of 5-0.
5-0.
Robert Lewandowski has 10 goals in 2 games.
And he's hungry for more, he said.
Give it to him.
Should be.
Feed him. Feed the beast. One of the more surprising, or maybe not, depending on how you view it, was Olympiacos grabbing a 3-2 victory against Arsenal. But if you are Arsene Wenger and you don't start Petr Cech or Aaron Ramsey, you're just begging for it.
Not only that, but you don't have Petr Cech in the goal, and your goalkeeper basically scores an own goal.
Oh my gosh!
I have to say, I watched the video. I don't see any angle that shows the ball was completely over the line.
Did they not have goal line technology in Champions League?
Apparently they're not using it because it was the assistant ref that's on the goal line there that called it a goal.
It should still get a buzz on the watch because
I agree, but I don't think they were using it at least for that game.
The angles I saw, because they showed about 4 or 5 different angles. I never saw an official one that was like, "Oh, that's clearly over."
Right.
It looked like it was, but I would have loved to have seen if any part of the ball touched the line or not.
Yeah, I mean, every angle I saw, to me, it looked like it was not a goal. But, at the same time, we're watching it from different angles. The lines, the assistant ref is right there on the goal
Straight
line.
down the line.
So yeah, but anyways, either way, that was just a ridiculous.
There's no reason that Arsenal should be losing to Olympiacos. And now Bayern Munich is going to be getting back Robben and Frank Ribery and one other guy his name is escaping me, all when they take on Arsenal in the next game. So Arsenal might as well just start 0-3.
Well, I'll tell you what, you had said it best. Maybe it's not a surprise. For me, it's not a surprise. Arsenal, they seem to be a team that they're happy to get the Champions League. The club's happy for the money,
Yes.
and then that's about it.
Champions League play has never been Arsenal's strong suit. Let's be honest about that. I mean, if you look at the Premier League table, Arsenal, sure, they're in fourth right now with a 4-1-2 record, 13
Which,
total
again,
points.
gets them back in Champions League.
It does, yes. I mean, I don't feel like West Ham's going to be hanging around in that third spot too long, but traditionally you'll start to see the lower clubs start to sift down and the bigger, more money clubs start to jump straight up a little bit farther. But, yeah, with Arsenal, 3-2 loss. Another British club that lost was Chelsea, as they lost to the Iker Casillas FC Porto boys by a score of 2-1.
And that's the club that brought Jose Mourinho so much fame.
It's true.
When he took them to first, I think it was the old UEFA Cup, and then ended up winning Champions League with them.
Yeah, I know. That's quite a long time
But
ago.
there, too, it doesn't surprise me how Chelsea's playing so poorly in league play, and that just continues to come over as well in the Champions League play.
It seems to be a consistent theme for them, in all honesty. All right, Dynamo Kiev won 2-0 over Maccabi Tel Aviv. That's how I'm going to pronounce it, because that's what I do. Sure, good for them. Awesome. Dynamo Kiev. Valencia grabbed a 1-0 victory over Leon, as we thought that there would be a good opportunity for the Spanish clubs to all play at a higher level this year. And we've not been disappointed so far, at least from Valencia and Real Madrid. Barcelona has had spotty moments, but still looked pretty good.
And it's Barcelona.
Exactly.
They can have a few bad
fine.
moments. Yep,
They'll
exactly.
be fine. And then the last game that took place on Tuesday was Zenit St. Petersburg winning 2-1 over KA Gent, or however exactly it is pronounced. But either way, they ended up winning. So good for them. Games that are taking place right now, we've got a few live games going on. Juventus and Sevilla are playing right now. We've also got, as you mentioned, Manchester United and Wolfsburg. Real Madrid and Malmo are on right now. PSG and Shakhtar are playing. PSV Eindhoven and CSK Moscow are on right now. Atletico Madrid and Benfica. Borussia something, Gladbach and Manchester City are playing. And an earlier game, we saw FC Estonia and Galatasaray draw 2-2.
There you go.
Champions League play is a lot of fun. I've actually been getting into it a little bit more recently than I thought I would be, but yeah, that's what you got to do.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I admit sometimes I love the great football that's played in Champions League, but sometimes I do get a little bored because it's another one of those tournaments that it's like, okay, let's see what minnow can go as far as they can, and then we'll get to the real tournament.
It's kind of like the March Madness tournament for college basketball. Everyone's always hoping and praying like, oh, there's going to be that one team that's going to sneak through and we're going to be cheering them on. And then it's like, please, you don't have nearly enough money to be in this tournament.
And, of course, I'm also being hypocritical because we look at the World Cup. It's fun to see what teams get into the round of 16. Then if you get that minnow that ends up in the quarterfinals.
Costa Rica.
But, eventually it's going to be Germany, Brazil, Argentina.
Maybe Spain if they decide to play soccer.
Right.
Yeah, it's always hard to know exactly, but it's safe. It's always a safe bet.
Yes. But nevertheless, it's exciting to watch.
It is.
Am I going to tune into a Sevilla Borussia game? Probably not.
No.
But if it's on the TV and when I turn it on, I'll probably sit down and watch a few minutes.
It's still a good
of it.
idea to watch some world-class players do what they do best. Well, we mentioned earlier during a 50-50 segment, Simon, about Jose Mourinho. Sounds like he's French now. As we mentioned the situation going on with him in how we think it's going to happen with managers around the EPL.
Mm-hmm.
3 managers that are coming under a lot of fire right now are Jose Mourinho, Brendan Rodgers of Liverpool, and Arsene Wenger of Arsenal. The fact that we're even talking about Arsene Wenger and Jose Mourinho being possibly fired or in the hot seat from a traditional standpoint, is a little surprising. Because usually you don't hear guys with that and the word fired or hot seat very often.
Right. Out of those three, I will say I think it's very obvious that Rodgers is one that is truly on the hot seat. Liverpool have not been doing well. They're at least in the top half of the Premier League. They sit at 9th. But,
Yes.
they're behind some teams that you wouldn't think they would be behind. Now, that said, nobody that I know of was expecting great things out of Liverpool this year. They lost a number of players.
Nope, I wasn't.
That we knew would affect them. At the same time, they've beaten some good teams. I mean, they beat Manchester United 3-1, who, by the way, are on top of the table right now.
They are.
They had a nice home win last time out on the 26th over Aston Villa, but you should be beating Aston Villa. However, they are just so inconsistent. I'm not quite sure. Let's see, we're trying to get another computer in here. There we go, Baxter.
There we go. Hopefully that'll work.
Looking at the streams here of the Champions League games. Anyways, Mourinho, as much as I said, I think he should be on the hot seat. I don't really think he is. It's Jose Mourinho.
Yeah.
And, if you're Chelsea and you let him go and he picks up another Premier League gig, you don't want to play against him.
No, you don't. He's one of those coaches that if you fire him, you're terrified to play him, like you mentioned. And I've heard rumors of Liverpool looking for a new manager if Brendan Rodgers goes. I've heard Mourinho's name. We've heard, was it Jurgen Klopp? I believe, right?
Yep.
We've heard that. I don't know. I don't know if Mourinho would go from Chelsea to Liverpool. That seems a bit far-fetched, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Mourinho's the type of guy that would like to see this through at least this season with Chelsea.
You can't. I feel like firing a manager after just even mid-season, I feel like is just not a smart strategy.
It's not smart, but we see it happen all the time.
Unless
in the Premier League.
I was gonna say, unless you are like 0-14 then clean house. Let's get a move on. But if you are a competitor, you want to at least think about it. Be like, hey, let's. We've won 8 or 9 games, maybe. Let's just see what happens. We don't need to get all crazy and go fire the manager because. Sometimes, regardless if the team is doing well or not, firing a manager can have a massive effect on the players.
Absolutely. But what I will say, though, is a lot of times it seems to have a positive effect.
Depending on the manager.
Players,
I feel like if Brendan Rodgers was fired at Liverpool, that would probably have a positive effect.
I do as well. And everybody, you hear from all the players, even Gerrard, even though he left Liverpool, he still had great things to say about Brendan Rodgers.
Yes.
He didn't have great things to say about Benitez. Well, he had actually a few things, but he just said he didn't like the fact that he had no personal relationship at all with Benitez. Arsene Wenger, though, that's the wild card. I don't think he will ever be on the hot seat at Arsenal. He is from the fans' perspective.
Sure.
But ownership loves him. Stan Kroenke loves him. Mm-hmm. They get to the Champions League every year.
You wouldn't fire. You just don't say the word fired and Arsene Wenger in the same sentence.
Right. He's to Arsenal what obviously Sir Alex Ferguson was to Manchester United. You can have a couple of bad years, which Ferguson didn't have many.
It's going to happen. It's
but,
part of soccer.
Right. But, I hate to say it, but he's making that club a lot of money every year.
I agree
they're
with
consistently
you
in the Champions League. They're consistently in the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if he feels the pressure to win league or to win Champions League.
I'd understand if they were a mid-table side, consistently. I would get that. I would get the fire talks. But Champions League, they're not a solid threat. In Premier League, that's what seems to be Arsenal's forte. You want to win the You want to win the Premier League. As we mentioned, the great year where Arsenal went undefeated. They didn't lose a single game. Those were when Thierry Henry was a part of it. Arsenal is accustomed to winning big games. They're accustomed to winning the league. Champions League is a whole nother bear.
Well, here would be an interesting thing, is that Swansea City is not having the best of years. Wouldn't it be something if Rodgers got fired from Liverpool and then Swansea hired him because he's the one who got Swansea up into the Premier League?
But what would that do for Swansea's coach, though? I mean, do they just...
Well, since they're doing terrible, they would probably sack their coach as well, is what I'm saying.
Well, they just trade coaches.
There you go, right.
Just trade coaches. Maybe it would work out for both sides. I don't know. All right, we're going to a break. We'll be right back. This is 2 Up Front. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
Welcome back inside the studio as we continue to roll on with another edition of Two Up Front. We just want to make note that you can catch us right here on Sports Radio America on Fridays from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also find us on demand on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on Spreaker.com as well. We've talked about Champions League. We've talked about the Montreal Impact. We've talked about smugglers. We've talked about boots. We've talked about all kinds of things.
You know what we didn't talk about?
What did we not talk
Baxter,
about?
I was such a happy sports fan this weekend.
Oh, what is
Had the trifecta of wins.
Trifecta. What happened?
Portland Timbers goes to Columbus, desperately needing to win. Adi gets a brace.
Columbus.
Yes, against a good Columbus. Adi gets a brace to take the 3 points in Columbus, 2-1.
That's huge.
Everton wins in their version of Monday Night Football, 3-2 over West Brom after being down. And, of course, hey, a little love to the Green Bay Packers taking care of business against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well done. I love it. I love it. Everybody won. Everybody's happy. My Revolution tied, so, I mean, they didn't lose.
Yeah. Well, they're still a good squad.
They
so
are.
Not much to worry about there.
No, I'm not too concerned, honestly.
Though, every team that could have taken advantage of the loss that the Red Bulls had did not take advantage of it.
No, that's usually kind of how it goes.
Vancouver didn't, New England didn't, and so the Red Bulls still have control of the Supporter Shield race. They control their destiny, as they say.
Not by much, but they still do control it, and
They
that's
do.
all that matters at the end of the day. I mean, looking at the Supporter Shield standings right now, the LA Galaxy hold the first spot with 50 points. Vancouver with 48, tied with the Red Bulls at 48 as well. FC Dallas and the Revolution and Columbus all have 47 points.
And then again, you go look back at games in hand. New York has 2 games in hand, so they're only 2 points behind L.A., but they've got 2 games on L.A. So if they win those 2 games, they're at the top.
It's a very good opportunity for that to happen. Now we know the Red Bulls have an interesting remainder of their season. They play a few decent teams.
They do.
But at the same time, it's one of those things that you feel could still work out in their favor. All right. Well, Simon, tonight is the final, or for you listening, we're recording the show on Wednesday, so take it for what it is. The U.S. Open Cup final is taking place on Wednesday night, and it will feature Philadelphia Union and Sporting Kansas City. Philadelphia Union coming into this game, if we're looking at regular season records, in a hot mess. Sporting Kansas City, if you're just looking purely at record, is okay.
Okay.
Decent.
They're a mess, but not a hot mess.
No. Philly is just a hot mess.
But
They're
this
a Philly
is
cheesesteak mess.
And this is, it's just like what happens across the pond. You have some teams who do really great in tournaments and not so great in league play. And these are 2 of those teams. Philadelphia made it to the final last year, ended up losing to Seattle.
Yes,
if that's
3-1.
right. Yes, and Sporting Kansas City. Oh, we got a goal here in the Champions League play.
PSG just scored. I believe it was David Luiz.
I believe it was.
Yep,
That's the
David
man pointing
Luiz.
to the sky. Anyway, Sporting Kansas City as well has done quite well in this tournament. Oh, another goal in Champions League play. Are we going to get through this segment?
Oh my gosh, we've got 4 different Champions League games going on in front of us right now. Wolfsburg's got a 1-0 lead on United. Juventus and Sevilla are tied up, and PSG just grabbed a 2-0 lead now on the club that they're facing. David Luiz getting a ricochet goal, but it's still goal's a goal. Ricocheted off his foot, and this keeper was left standing flat-footed. And then Atletico Madrid just cashed in. Angel Correa gave Madrid a 1-0 lead as well in their game. All right, talking back about the U.S. Open Cup, Seattle, like you did mention, yes, defeated Philly by a score of 3-1 last season. Philadelphia's head coach Jim Curtin promised a young fan last year that he would make up for the loss and win the Open Cup this year for him.
And they've made it to the final. They made it to where they need to be, obviously, to win that trophy.
Yes.
Here's an interesting stat for you. If Philly wins, they would be the first club from Philadelphia to win the U.S. Open Cup since 1966, which is also when England won the World Cup.
Coincidence?
The Ukrainian Nationals. That's, of course, back in the day when every single club here in the U.S. had some ethnic tie to it. If Kansas City wins, they've got a little more recent history. They won the Cup in 2012.
It would be their 3rd major title in the last 4 seasons between MLS Cup and U.S. Open Cup.
Right.
And that only can be rivaled by the LA Galaxy, who
That's
have won
right.
3 MLS Cups in the last 4 seasons. An interesting stat about this game, obviously the last time these 2 teams met in Open Cup play was back in 2012, where Sporting Kansas City won 2-0. As part of their U.S. Open Cup championship run. But what is even more interesting is both teams have played 4 games, and we've seen 2 draws and 2 wins for the Union. Sporting has outright won all of their games 4-0. Sporting has scored 13 goals in 4 games. The Union have scored 4. statistically speaking, Sporting should run all over Philadelphia. Statistically.
They should. And, it's always hard to call the final in this because emotions are high. They're playing in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Sporting will end up raising the cup.
I agree. I tweeted that out earlier today that I think
you got players like Dom Dwyer, Benny Feilhaber,
Christian Namath, Matt Beasler, Seth Stanovich. Yeah. The list goes on. And Roger Espinoza. Yeah, the list goes on and on. Pablo Nagamura, another fantastic. They just have a great roster of strong core players. Graham Zusi, can't forget about Graham. What a guy.
Right. And it's one game now. It's down to one game.
It is.
So, yeah, they've been suffering in league
tonight.
play, but this is one game. A trophy's on the line. I think we see these guys come together and take care of business.
I'd agree with you on that one. Folks are saying that it's Philly's year. Yeah, sure, maybe, but just because you're hosting the game doesn't always mean it. For Sporting, they're probably, yes, okay, it's a cup final. Okay, sure. Sporting is viewing it as an away game, so they're going to go in realizing that the atmosphere is going to be against them. But like you mentioned, it's a cup final. They're going to put their best players on the field. They're going to come at Philadelphia with all they have. They've only conceded 4 total goals during their 4 games that they've played. They have fired off 27 total shots, 36 total shots, putting 27 of those on target. As we know, Philadelphia, they're struggling to figure out their goalkeeper situation as well, just because of what's going on. Is it going to be Andre Blake? Is it going to be John McCarthy? It's going to be kind of a hot mess to figure out exactly. More than likely, it's going to be John McCarthy, who's played very well in the previous 4 U.S. Open Cup matches. But Philadelphia, they're still trying to fight for a playoff spot in Major League Soccer also. But like you mentioned, this is a one game and one tournament. It's got to be all hands on deck.
I will say one thing about Philly. What's impressive is that they had that draw with New England, and yet they rested a lot of their starters because they were saving them for this game.
Sporting did the same.
Right. So we'll see what happens in league play after this as well. But what's exciting about this, Baxter, is it's finally on a decent channel that just about everybody can watch.
Fox Sports 34?
No, Fox Sports 33. It's been bumped. No, ESPN2. The game will finally be on ESPN2.
There
were a number of years there where U.S. Soccer had sold the rights to this tournament to
YouTube?
It wasn't. Well, it's been on YouTube, but there was. I forget. It's a. I don't even think the channel exists anymore. But maybe it was the old Gold TV or something like that.
Right.
Which barely anybody got. So it's finally. I don't know if U.S. Soccer is paying to air it this time. I don't care. They made a great decision. The oldest tournament in this country out of any sport. This is the 102nd edition.
My goodness.
Of the U.S. Open Cup, which now, of course, is named after Lamar Hunt. I hope it's a great game, that the ratings at least do decent, and I hope teams continue to take this tournament more and more seriously, just as it seems like the teams in CONCACAF Champions League are finally starting to take that tournament serious.
Yes.
And the reason those two go hand in hand is the winner of this gets a pass to the CONCACAF Champions League.
And whether or not I feel like from a CONCACAF Champions League standpoint, that would probably be beneficial if it was Sporting over Philly, but
either way,
we saw Montreal this last year do really well, and they're an okay team pre-Drogba.
Sure.
And now we see possibly Philly. Philly doesn't have a ton of stars on their squad, but they could still make a bit of a noise.
But what can happen there is we saw it with DC United when they won the Open Cup, and they had a very poor season in league. Is what happens is MLS gives them, I believe it's $100,000 to boost their roster, to help them in Champions League play. DC's doing quite well in Champions League play.
Yes.
Because of that boost they got with that extra allocation money. Maybe we see the same thing happen with Philadelphia. But for teams that are fighting for playoff spots, this at least whoever wins this guarantees them a way into the CONCACAF Champions League. So it's a bigger deal, and it keeps getting to be a bigger deal as we see teams doing poorly in league play but then doing well in this tournament.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you on that one. Yeah, you mentioned poor league play. Philadelphia, they sit in 9th place right now in the Eastern Conference standings with 9 total wins. They're 9-15-7. Losing 15 games in a regular season never really guarantees you a chance to make the playoffs. However, it is the Eastern Conference, so anything is physically possible.
And they lose one more, they're basically out. Montreal wins. And Toronto, well, if Toronto draws and Montreal wins their next game, Philly is out of the playoffs.
Yes, New York and Orlando are holding on barely.
But
yeah. It's still kind of possible, technically.
Right.
Sporting Kansas City, we saw them be really hot in the beginning of the year. They dominated our power rankings for a while, which we'll get to in our next segment. And now they've slid all the way down to the 5th spot in the Western Conference. They're 12-9-9. Not terrible. +4 goal difference. They've played 30 total games. They still got a game in hand that they have to take care of. However, though, like you said, moving away completely from league play just for one match, all hands on deck, like we mentioned. Sporting has my vote in this one. I've got them winning this game 2-1.
You got them winning 2-1. I will have them winning this game. We'll go with 3-2 just to differentiate the score.
Fair enough. Yeah, I tweeted it out earlier before we jumped on the show that as much as it's great that Philly's got a home game and all, but it's not going to matter because at the end of the day, Sporting holds the better roster, and I feel like Dom Dwyer is going to be a force to reckon with tonight.
So, if our predictions from last week are worth anything, congratulations, Philadelphia Union.
Yeah, well done, guys. Well done. We're so glad you finally won. I forgot that Philly's only been around for 6 years.
Yeah.
I read that today when I was doing research for an article that I wrote for HNGN.com, and I was like, Philly's only been around 6 years. That's right. Just you hear about them talked about all the time as historic, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, they've only been around 6 years, but soccer in Philadelphia has been around much longer.
Bethlehem Steel, they were the first really professional club there, one of the first professional clubs in this country.
Yeah.
Great history of Bethlehem Steel, and of course, the third kit that the Philadelphia Union uses is a nod to Bethlehem Steel.
Which is a very nice gesture.
If you don't know who the Bethlehem Steel are or were...
Did Jesus play for them? Back in the day?
I'm sure they had some players that people might have considered their savior of that club.
No kidding.
But read up on that history. It's pretty awesome. I don't have time to go over all of it today. But what's interesting, though, is that it was also a team that was named after the company that basically owned them, Bethlehem Steel.
That makes sense, kind of like the Green Bay Packers,
Right.
Acme Packing Company, Pittsburgh Steelers, talking about the steel industry.
So I guess my point is for all of those folks who have a problem with the New York Red Bulls being called the New York Red Bulls, that is not unusual.
No, it's
in
really
the history
not.
of sports.
Yeah, I have no problem with it in total honesty. So whether or not Philadelphia is able to overcome the odds and defeat Sporting Kansas City tonight, we'll find out. Obviously, we mentioned Dom Dwyer, player to watch. MLSsoccer.com also feels that Sebastian Letou is a guy to keep an eye on.
Of course.
He's just you always keep an eye on Sebastian Letou. I feel like he's ageless. He just continues to impress, and he's just one of those guys that you don't count on him as an elite player, but you don't ever count against him.
Right.
Because he's capable of changing the way a game flows.
He's one of those players that I think any team in the league would be happy to have on their roster.
Oh, I would agree with you on that. I mean, he's, sure, like we mentioned, he's not an elite player, but he can change the flow of a game in a heartbeat. So, all right, flipping over from U.S. Open Cup to Major League Soccer playoffs, we've briefly talked about where teams sit in the standings. But an update on the standings. Not much has changed for some teams. For other teams, they're still trying to fight a chance to get in. Starting in the Eastern Conference, it reads 1 through 6 right now with the Red Bulls, the Revolution, Columbus, DC United, Toronto, and Montreal. Last week, I went on record and stated that the 6 teams in the playoffs right now will be the 6 teams that make the playoffs.
Yeah, there's no arguing that. You're talking about the Eastern Conference, correct?
Eastern, yes.
Yeah, Eastern Conference. I think it's pretty much settled.
Even with the 3-game win streaks that Orlando and NYCFC are on right now?
Yep, I still think. They're at 38 points, so they're going to be putting pressure mostly on Toronto and DC because I think Montreal may end up winning.
You think Montreal is going to jump to the 4th spot?
I think they will with how well they're playing and with how poor DC United's playing and with how inconsistent Toronto FC is.
There's that word.
I think Montreal jumps up to the 4th spot.
I would not be shocked by that. I mean, I mentioned I think way back in the beginning of our show, like when we first began 25 shows ago.
25 shows ago.
I know.
Wow,
Time flies when you're having fun. That I felt that it would be Orlando. I think I said Orlando would make the playoffs in the East, but I don't know if that's going to come to fruition.
They're cutting it close though, so you give them credit for that.
Kaká has been a little back and forth, but we saw Kyle Larin drop 3 goals to break the rookie record.
So this goes back to my comment before about congratulations, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
You're probably going to win. We both said that we think Kyle Larin will not tie that or break the rookie record until at least the last week of the season, and then he goes and gets a hat trick.
Sometimes he just likes to, make people mad. And I thought it was interesting that Orlando was able to drop 4 goals on the New York Red Bulls.
5.
Was it 5?
It was
that's
5
right. That's
to
right.
2.
They added a 5th goal late on.
They did.
That's right.
We got a PK, by the way, taking place here with Man U and Wolfsburg. Mata is taking it for Manchester
Bruni's
United.
not taking it.
And it's good. 1-1. 1-1, Manchester United and Wolfsburg. Everybody listening to this on Sports Radio America on Friday is going to be like, why? We know.
This is old news. We already know who won. So you guys in the future that are listening to this show, you should be like, I already know who won. Or, Yeah. But yeah, so playoff consistently in the East is going to be a fun time to figure out who ends up taking the cake. Western Conference is where it gets interesting. 1 through 6, respectively, the Galaxy, Whitecaps, FC Dallas, Seattle, Sporting, and Portland.
But San Jose is still very much alive,
Houston
putting pressure on Portland.
too.
And Houston's in there as well. And Real Salt Lake, they could sneak in there. They're at 30 games. They win their next one. They're at 41 points. Right now they're at 38. So that 6th spot is still heavily up for grabs. This is, again, if we want to talk about promotion relegation, this, to me, is just as exciting as a relegation fight for that 6th seed.
I agree with you. That's why I like the battle of the playoffs. I feel like it adds an added sense of excitement of, it's a possibility that this team might make it, or, this team might not make it. And I prefer who gets in the playoffs than who gets relegated, personally.
Right. And I'm not against promotion relegation.
No, I'm not either.
We've talked about it on the show before, so we don't need to rehash it. But I just don't think it's a realistic possibility considering the difference in how much you're spending to get into MLS versus NASL versus USL. But I think you can easily make the argument that these playoff battles at the end of the year can be just as exciting as a relegation or a promotion battle.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you on that one, especially, I think the playoffs is such an American thing to do.
Sure.
So, from my perspective of following the NFL, play Major League Baseball and National Basketball League, whoever gets in the playoffs, that's a hot ticket.
Playoffs?
I know, the playoffs. We are talking about the playoffs. That is something that you want to do. And in soccer, it's all about the points. It's 3 points you could possibly make or break whether or not you make it in. So this is such a huge thing for San Jose and Houston. You mentioned Real Salt Lake a little bit, but I feel like Real Salt Lake's time is done, personally.
Yeah, we'll see. Because I believe they play Houston and San Jose yet in their.
So there is an opportunity for it, whether or not that it comes to.
And that's what's going to make this so exciting. Sorry to interrupt you,
Go
Baxter,
ahead.
but that's what makes this so exciting. The 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th seeds right now in the Western Conference. I believe most of them play at least one of those teams, or at least a couple of those teams.
So there are great opportunities for a
Yes.
team to sneak in. And we even mentioned about the Revolution. They take on, I believe, NYCFC. They have Montreal. There's a few different games going on.
A lot of 6-point games is what we call them.
Yes, absolutely. All right, well, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we'll have our new MLS Power Rankings and our predictions for the upcoming week of action. This is 2 Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to another edition of 2 Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And I'm Simon Provan.
All right, Simon, you had something interesting to share with the fans out there, didn't you?
Just saw this come across. Michael Bradley. Oh, I'm not always a fan of trash talking, but on Instagram he posted that famous shot of him putting his forehead into Chicharito's forehead with the words Doce Cero. 10.10. That is the CONCACAF Cup. For those of you who are wondering what that refers to, CONCACAF Cup will determine who goes to the, what is that called?
Confederations Cup in Russia.
Yes.
2017.
2017. So, of course, this is just a big one because they've each won, what year are we in? 2015? U.S. won the 2013 CONCACAF Gold Cup. What's the line of Donovan, by the way? 2015 Gold Cup. Well, Mexico was claimed the winner of the 2015.
They happen to be in the area.
So let's say that. So this then is the first time in the history of CONCACAF that they took the winners of each CONCACAF Gold Cup.
Yes.
And are making them play against each other, because it used to be there was one Gold Cup that was basically pointless.
Yes.
It was just for teams to play. And then the one that was closest to the Confederations Cup, that winner would go on and play. Well, enough of these federations said, this just isn't fair. Why, I understand that CONCACAF does it 2 times in a World Cup cycle, really for the minnows in order to build up their teams, and also, of course, because of all the money that was being stolen from these things. But this is exciting. So October 10th, check it out. Mexico, U.S. playing for their spots.
I'm excited for it. I think I need to make sure that is marked off on my calendar so I can watch it.
So Michael Bradley, I'd say well done, but like I said, I'm not always a fan of
I think that's
locker room material.
I don't know how I feel about it. I'm good for a little bit of I mean, it's semi-harmless, but it tends a strong point.
Yeah, it does. It does.
We have another goal, by the way, in
we
Champions
do.
League. Yes, Juventus are on the board against
there
Sevilla. Now they're up 1-0 in the 41st minute. A lot of Champions League action going on here as we're doing our taping. It was a great swung ball in, a nice little header to the far post. Clinical. Well done. All right, Simon. It's time for our new power rankings.
Ooh, this is a weird week, Baxter.
It's a very weird week.
Odd week.
If we had talked back at the beginning of the season saying, hey, this is what our week, whatever it is, power rankings are going to look like, I'd have probably slapped both of us and walked out and been like, call me when you wake up from whatever delusion you're in right now.
Last week, I talked about when you walked in here, I said, you're going to think my power rankings are a little crazy. And then when we got on air, we realized, oh, no, they're actually very similar. And as I was making mine out today, I thought, no, this is the week that Baxter's going to think I'm crazy. And I look over at yours and I realize, no, we're pretty much the same again.
Yeah, we're very similar again. I mean, well, let's refresh my power rankings. Last week I had the Revolution at 1, Red Bulls 2, Seattle 3, Montreal 4, Columbus Crew 5.
I had Montreal at 5, Columbus at 4, Seattle at 3, New York 1, New England 2.
Yep, so we just took the same 5 teams and just futzed around with them for a little bit and then ended up coming out the same side.
And we will say that we've almost done the same thing, but actually, I think we're even closer this week, possibly. Well, maybe we're a little more skewed.
We're a little off, but we have the same teams again.
We do. And we even, not to keep going on about how funny I find some of this, but I even had said to Baxter, I said to you, I'm actually going to have 2 teams at number 5, of which your reply was, yeah, I'm going to 2 as well.
Yeah, kind of is the theme that has been rolling with. We're very much in sync, so there's nothing wrong with that. Well, looking at the teams that we have here, our number 5s are, as we mentioned, the same. 1 and the same. We have both Orlando City and New York City FC. Yes, FC. They're not SC. At 5 because both of them are on a 3-game win streak right now.
Yeah, there's, it's weird to have 2 teams that are pretty much not going to make it. Maybe Orlando does into the playoffs, but this is where we always go back and forth. Is they're the power rankings, and it's really based on the teams who are playing the strongest right now.
It's all about current form.
Both these teams on a 3-game win streak. You can't deny that they may not be able to make the playoffs, but they're certainly doing their best to shake up the playoff picture. Which
I think is fantastic from their perspective, because if you can maybe rattle another team's hopes of making a deep run in the playoffs, that allows. You like you said, you can play spoiler. I mean, I don't feel like the Chicago Fire are going to probably sneak too many victories away from any teams this season. But as we know in the soccer world, anything can happen on any given day. But even still, I mean, come on, really? Not surprised.
By the way, Kyle Larin became the first MLS player in FIFA 16's Team of the Week.
Really?
Yeah,
good for him. I mean, when you score a hat trick, you have to assume that you're going to...
And not just a hat trick in any game, but a hat trick against basically the team that is very possibly going to be the Supporter Shield winner.
Yes, so I think as a rookie, that has to be a massive boost for Larin.
Right.
You have to be thrilled by that. He's got 14 goals now.
As a rookie, but any player, you're going to be happy to get that. I mean, I understand your point.
14 goals, I think, regardless, is fantastic.
But I'm saying getting that hat trick against one of the best.
Red Bulls?
Yeah.
Arguably the best team in Major League Soccer.
Right. So number 4, speaking of the Red Bulls, we both have the Red Bulls at number 4.
Yes, we do. New York Red Bulls at number 4. Let's take a look back at some of their recent games. They lost to Orlando City, as we mentioned, 5-2. They defeated the Portland Timbers 2-0. Then they lost to the Revolution 2-1. And then they've also won against the Fire and against DC United as well.
Yeah, so I mean, they're still a very strong team. I had them at number 1 last week. I still feel like they will be shooting back up to number 1 before the season's over. But you've got 4 other teams above them that are playing better.
No, I'd agree with you on that one, and that's what we've talked about and we'll reveal in the rest of our power rankings coming forward. The Red Bulls, they have a good squad, but like you mentioned, they're in a small funk right now, but it won't affect them. Come playoff time, they'll be fine. They've got 5 games left.
And their history of going into funks has been a good sign for them because when they come out of it, they are on fire.
Yes. I mean, look at the next 5 games. To finish off, they have the Crew, the Impact, Toronto, Philly, and Chicago.
All winnable games.
Yes.
Every single one of those. Maybe the Crew is going to be the toughest one.
Maybe Montreal.
But maybe Montreal, yeah. But those are all winnable games for the New York Red Bulls.
Even if they claim 2 out of those games, 2 wins out of those 5 remaining games, they'll keep them in the playoffs. They'll finish a top 3 spot. That's respectable if you're New York.
Especially considering the way they started. The fans screaming at the administration over there, and I don't think they're screaming at the administration anymore.
Probably not. No, I would have to agree with you on that one. All right, well, looking at our number 3 teams, you have who, Simon?
I have the New England Revolution. You had them at number 1 last week. I had them at number 2.
Yes.
They had a loss against the Montreal Impact, 3-0, and then they came out of that with a draw against the lowly Philadelphia Union. So for me, I had to knock them down at least a peg.
Understandable.
I still think they're an extremely talented team. You got some great players, a great goalkeeper over there. And as I said, it's the team I put above them also drew, but they're on a 5-game. Not winless. It's the opposite. What's winless? What's the opposite of winless? 5-game non-losing streak.
Unbeaten.
Unbeaten. Thank you.
Is the word you're looking for.
So I'll tell you right away. My number 2. Well, you can tell them who my number 2 is.
Well, your number 2 is my number 3.
There you go.
So that works out well. The Seattle Sounders. And as we look at Seattle, they've done decent. They haven't lost, like you mentioned. They haven't lost in the last 6 games. Well, they haven't lost in the last 5 games. They've won 3. They beat Portland. They beat Toronto. They drew with San Jose. They beat Vancouver handily, and then they just drew with Sporting KC. And
on top of that, I will say one of the reasons I'm going to have them at number 2 is what this doesn't show is that 3-0 win over the Whitecaps also in Champions League play.
That's huge. That's absolutely huge. That was a big boost of their confidence. So Seattle sits at Simon and I's.
I'm at number 2.
You're at number 2. I'm at number 3. Seattle is my 3rd team. Now, this is where it gets a little flip-floppy for us. Number 2 for me is your number 1.
Yes.
My number 1 was your number 3, so we can just kind of go through it fast. Montreal Impact is my number 2. Simon, your number 1.
They're my number 1
I never thought I'd hear the day that the Impact would be a number 1 team in power rankings.
Especially, I mean, they've come out of nowhere. Of course, that nowhere is them signing Drogba.
Yes.
But, I mean, 6-game unbeaten streak. 2-0 over DC, 2-1 over the Fire, 3-0 over New England. And they had a couple of draws in there with San Jose, LA Galaxy, and, of course, another win over the Chicago Fire. So they've got some games in there that, yes, they should have won, but then they got games in there that you wouldn't expect them to win or draw.
The fact that they drew against the Galaxy was massive.
So
I think that was a massive confidence booster.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, they had that win against the Fire at 4-3 that started this run, but then you go the next week, you can be thinking, okay, well, it was the Fire. How much of a win was that really?
Exactly.
But then you go and draw the Galaxy, and then you go and draw San Jose, who's also a strong team right now as well. Then you come out of that beating your New England Revolution 3-0. I'm sorry, when a team's playing that well, I have to kind of forgive what's happened in the past. And
I agree.
They're the hottest team in MLS for me right now.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, you have Montreal at 2. I have Montreal at 2. You have them at 1. I have the New England Revolution still at 1 based off of their entire length of victories right now. Yes, I understand they've lost one. They lost against the Impact and is tied with the Philadelphia Union. Take away that one loss to Montreal. The last time the Revolution lost a game was July 11th. So they've been on a fantastic run of form. I don't think that loss to Montreal defines how they've been recently. And the draw to Philly, well, yes, I get it. New England, they've only got 3 games left in their regular season play. They've got the Fire, the Impact, and NYCFC. They should take at least 2 out of those games. I'm on the fence about Montreal right now because of how well they've been playing, obviously.
Can I accuse you of having just a little bit of heart in your power rankings?
You can have a smidge bit of heart, but it happens. It happens. If Portland was playing well, you might be there too.
I see. I'm the type of guy that I'm harder on my own teams than I am on any other team.
I usually am too, and I was very hard on New England early in the season, but I feel like the long haul they've been playing very
Yeah,
well.
I mean, they're, as I was saying it before, they're a great team. It's the two teams. Losing 3-0 to any team is never good. But then to come out of that drawing with Philly, that's my one thing that I look at that and go, oof.
Yeah.
That's
That'll leave a
more
mark.
telling for me than anything else.
Understandable. No, I definitely get what you're saying on that part. All right, so one time again, both of us have our new power rankings here on two up front. Simon and I both have NYCFC and Orlando City SC at number 5. Number 4 are the New York Red Bulls for both of us, respectively. Number 3 for Simon is the Revolution. Number 3 for me is Seattle. Number 2 for Simon is Seattle. Number 2 for myself is Montreal. And number 1 for Simon is Montreal. And number 1 for myself is the Revolution.
Can I make an early prediction?
Please.
This is the only time we will have Montreal, NYCFC, and Orlando in our power rankings.
Oh, ever again. Even we could do the show for another 20 years.
Yes.
And I don't
Yes.
think it would ever get to that point again, honestly. What is going on? What's with all these East teams in our power rankings?
Well, that's just it. You mentioned it last show. Western teams are so good, but they're just beating up on each other right
They're
now.
tired.
Which makes me wonder if the MLS Cup winner will actually come out of the West, or are we going to see that team come out of the East?
Fair enough. All right, well, Simon, it's time for some predictions. Taking place Friday night is DC United against New York City FC. United, New York, who you got?
I'm going to call, and I will call this an upset. DC is going to win this game.
Okay. I can understand that. DC, the home team in this game. Very much possible. I'm going to continue on the bandwagon of New York
All
right
right.
now.
All right.
Someone's got to keep the seats warm. Toronto and Philly on Saturday.
Philly's going to put so much into this game tonight, the Open Cup final here on Wednesday night. They're going to be worn out for this game. Toronto FC is going to take this one.
I feel like Toronto might handily beat them also.
Yes.
And I get it. You want to put all your eggs in a basket if you're Philly, but you can't forget about league play and possible playoff play also.
I'm just looking ahead here, Baxter. There are a lot of great games in MLS this weekend.
I'm stoked.
My goodness.
Honestly, I'm very excited about this weekend of play. Looking at the New York Red Bulls taking on Columbus Crew.
This is a tough one to call. You got Kamara, who's still on a hot streak.
Yep.
Bradley Wright Phillips, on the other hand, is also playing really well. The Red Bulls, I'm gonna take New York in this one.
Yep, I'd have to agree with you on that one. Columbus Crew, I'm a little concerned.
Mm-hmm.
They've played well, but they're dropping just a wee bit. So I've got to go with the Red Bulls winning this game. Orlando and Montreal, typically an okay game, but now it has a bit of purpose.
Yes, which Orlando team will show up? That's the question. I think no matter which one it is, Montreal is going to take this one.
Do both teams score in this game?
Yes.
How many goals?
I think this is going to be a shootout.
Like a 3-2 or a 4-3 kind of game?
I think more of a 4-3.
Neither team have a very good goalie, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a bit of a shootout happen. The Chicago Fire taking on the...
Who are you taking?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to call an upset. I'm going to go Orlando in this game.
All right.
Chicago and New England, I'm going to stick with the Revolution in this game. It's a rivalry game for the Revolution, but I feel like they're sick and tired of their not winning a game the last 2 games, so they're going to come out and try to pound the Chicago Fire.
I'm going to go crazy. I'm taking the Fire on this one.
You are. That's fine. It's fine. You can do what you want. It's your prediction, not mine.
And it's not because I think I say this every time I pick somebody other than New England. It's not because it's against New England. I'm feeling for the Fire. I think they got to get a win in here at some point.
The fire has been extinguished a long time ago. Let's be honest about this. Your beloved Portland Timbers taking on Sporting Kansas City, a great Western Conference game.
Playoff implications are here because we also have San Jose taking on Vancouver, FC Dallas taking on Houston in that Texas derby. I used my argument with the Toronto FC Philly game. I'm going to use the same argument here and say that Portland is going to win this game. And I think Portland had that fantastic win over Columbus. I feel like all they need is one more win, and they're in. And
Fair enough.
think this could be that game.
I'm going to call a draw.
Yeah?
Yeah, I feel like Sporting is still going to have a little bit left in the tank. And is going to surprise Portland with a draw.
You never know if Portland's going to actually be able to put that ball in the back of the net. They will outshoot every team they play the rest of the way. But you never know if they're going to score. So I can totally understand calling that a draw.
Yes. Yep, I agree on that one. All right, San Jose and Vancouver, another Western Conference playoff implication matchup. San Jose, Vancouver. Vancouver, you'd like to say yes, but because of how well San Jose's been playing recently.
San Jose's playing well. Vancouver's got the long trip. It's actually not too long. It's Northern California, right?
They're going from there.
It's still a trip, but I'm taking San Jose.
I figured you would. I'm going to take Vancouver.
Okay.
All right, FC Dallas and Houston on Sunday. I'm going to go with Houston winning this game.
Okay, I'm going to take FC Dallas.
Okay, very nice. Colorado and Real Salt Lake, the game that is being televised. Good for them, I guess. Oh, boy. It's going to be on Fox Sports 1. Sorry for those guys that are going to cover that game.
Yes.
Real Salt Lake is going to win this game.
I'm taking Real Salt Lake as well.
All right. And then,
now, big one, exciting one on FS1 in the nightcap, Seattle and LA Galaxy.
That is going to be fun. I've got LA winning.
I do as well. I was hoping you were going to take that other team.
No.
And I'll tell you what, I'm taking it because of history. We talk about these games.
They've got their number.
Exactly. The Galaxy just seem to have Seattle's number.
There's nothing wrong with that. Galaxy, all the way, baby. Western Conference favorite team right there. I've been a fan of the Galaxy before it was cool. That's my
I'd
argument.
say we have a couple games on Wednesday, but who knows when we're going to be recording our show. Maybe we do it again next Wednesday.
Yeah, it's possible.
So we'll save those for next week.
Exactly. All right, we are going to go to a break. When we come back, we'll have our I Believe segments and wrap up another edition of Two Up Front. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I am Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan. Hey, Baxter, there's a couple of things I did want to talk about. We haven't mentioned the Milwaukee Torrent in a while,
True.
and I've been in contact with Andy Davi, the owner of the Torrent, and also will be the head coach. So that's a team that's going to be starting up here with the ASL 2 League.
American Soccer League 2.
Next summer. They have announced that all the spots in their October 18th tryouts have been filled, so they'll be looking at 30 players. And he does tell me that there will be other tryouts, but no dates have been set. And also, Milwaukee Torrent player, the first player they signed, James Weber, he's playing over in Sweden right now, got 2 goals in his last game, so that's exciting.
Well done.
Some
we
exciting
had James
Milwaukee
and Andy
news.
on the show back about a month or so ago. A little bit more than that.
Right.
Time flies when you're having
Beginning
fun.
of the summer, actually.
Good Lord, it's been that long.
But yeah, so just checking in there with our friends over at the Milwaukee Torrent.
Yeah,
so
well done for them.
Best wishes on all of you trying out for the Milwaukee Torrent.
Yeah, I thought about trying out, but I just didn't want to embarrass anybody. So figured I'd just let somebody else have a chance.
Actually, I thought about showing up at tryouts.
Did you?
And watching.
Oh, okay. I mean, I was like, I'd try out if you're going to try out. I think that'd be fun. I did that with a buddy of mine, 3 years ago now, right after I got my foot surgery and I was cleared to play. My buddy's like, you want to try it for the Milwaukee Wave? I was like, okay, sure. So, I mean, neither of us made it, but it was still fun to go. And all their tryouts were is you played 4 indoor soccer games in a row.
Yeah.
It was rigorous and painful and exciting, but you just got to play soccer for, a day.
I am going to try to get back on the field. I haven't played in a year because of several injuries I've had, but I've signed up for Over 40. Even though I'm not 40 yet, but they get 3 underage players.
And you are one of the lucky ones.
I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm gonna give it a shot this fall. We'll see how it goes.
Come put me in.
Yeah.
You can come play in the fall soccer league that I play in.
I might have to.
Yeah, our friend Brad Kostreva plays too.
Oh, does he?
He does.
How do I not know about this stuff?
I don't know.
All
Why don't you
right.
come out and play? We're always looking for more people. Game on Sunday if you got nothing going on.
Well, I've got kind of a show going on.
You got time. You always have time for soccer, Simon. Come on, let's be honest. Like we always have time for this segment of the show. It is our I Believe segment here on Two Up Front. And the way it works is Simon and I both offer an I Believe statement about something that we believe is going to happen in the soccer world. Hypothetically, I believe that FIFA will fold and it will be a new organization next summer.
You know, let me just talk about that. So the newest controversy with Michael Platini, basically getting paid off by FIFA to not run as president when he was going to challenge Sepp Blatter. $2 million payment that he's saying, well, no, it's for work I did 14 years ago.
Hey, well, with inflation and other things, I can understand that.
I think your hypothetical, I believe, may not actually be too hypothetical when it's all said and done.
My hypotheticals are usually very outlandish and crazy, but you never know. There's a bit of truth mixed into my hypotheticals. All right, Simon, you can go first this week.
Yeah, I believe that Everton is not an anomaly sitting in the 5th spot in the Premier League. I think Everton, Tim Howard this week came out and said this is the best Everton team he's ever played with since he's been playing there since, I think it was 2006 is when he transferred over there.
Yeah.
Those are big words out of a great goalkeeper, and they're sitting at 5th. Great comeback win over West Brom this past Monday. I think Everton's going to be back in Europe. Now, whether that's a good thing, I think they'll probably end up back in the Europa League.
Okay.
But teams, as much as the English teams don't do well in Champions League recently, it seems like the team that ends up in the Europa League tends to suffer so much in league play. And there's different reasons for that. We won't have to get into all of those. But one of the big ones is those games happen on Thursdays.
Yes.
And then you got to turn around and play again on Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, that's definitely a bit of a cruel thing to deal with because it's like you mentioned, it's not a lot of time. You usually are traveling outside of the country that you're based in. It's jet lag, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So you don't get as much time to recover. Now, I will say too, what a big factor what will really help me determine if what I'm saying is true this weekend, first Merseyside derby of the season. That's a 6 a.m. game,
How do you feel
Central
about
Time. I think Everton has a better team right now than Liverpool. Everton should win this game.
Okay.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. Last week I called that Everton would beat West Brom. They had me worried there for a while, but they came back and played strong. I think when you win a game like that in that fashion, coming back and winning 3-2 after being down,
that's a huge confidence boost.
That's a huge confidence boost that tends to stay with you for at least a few games.
Understandable.
So I'm calling an Everton win in the first Merseyside derby of the season.
Okay. All right, well, my I Believe this week centers around who we talked about in the first segment, Didier Drogba. I believe that Didier Drogba, with 5 games remaining in the season, will finish the season with more than 13 goals.
Ooh.
He's got 7 right now.
Yeah.
I think he'll get a minimum of 13 to finish out the year.
They got 6 more games, is that right?
5.
Impact at 5, okay.
Yep, 5 games left.
Yeah.
I think it's very doable. With the pace that he's been on recently, I feel like Drogba could easily eclipse 13 goals on the year. It won't put him in complete MLS MVP talk, but he'll be
mentioned.
A conversation.
But like I said, they're already giving it to Giovinco.
Which is stupid. Don't. Give it to Kai. Kai Kamara's worked way too hard to not get it. Well, Giovinco is just a big name.
Well, and Giovinco is a goal scorer and a man who feeds plenty of assists, so I understand that argument.
But even still, if MLS is smart, they will not give it to Giovinco unless he goes off the last few games. Then I will be like, okay, that's fine. But no. Right now, Kai Kamara deserves the MVP award. All right, well, thank you for tuning in to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. Remember, you can catch us on Fridays right here on Sports Radio America from 3 to 6 Eastern. You can also catch us on demand on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on Spreaker.com as well. You can also find us on social media.
Facebook, we are Two Up Front. On Twitter, we are at Two Up Front Soccer, at Baxter Colburn, at Simon Provan. I did it again. The wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. And forgot my own name.
I was more concerned about you forgetting your own name than mispronouncing my name. Remember, the Q is silent in Baxter.
That's right. Yes.
It always gets you. Gets me every time, too. I've done that before when I'm doing like DMV papers, and they're like, wait, what? I'm like, Don't worry about it. It's fun. My wife slaps me, and then I laugh.
You know what you should add to that is the queue is silent and invisible.
They would be. It's kind of like when I go to restaurants and I ask for powdered water or diet water. The waitress. My dad did that one time, and a waitress actually went and asked the manager and said, "Sorry, we're out of diet water." Probably one of the better memories of my childhood, right there.
So what you're saying is basically you're channeling your dad with all of these dad jokes that you make when you're not a dad yet.
I'm not. A few more years. We just got 2 cats.
You did get 2 cats.
So I'm a furry father. I don't know if that's the right way to go with it. Anyway, thank you for tuning into another edition of 2 Up Front. He's Simon Provan. I'm Baxter Colburn. Enjoy the soccer action. We will see you all again next week. Good luck to all of you and your favorite soccer teams, with our manager being the one above. We are 2 Up Front.